nation's capital, the mood has shifted from fearful to celebratory as spectators in Washington, D.C. listened to President Joe Biden appeal for unity and healing during his inauguration address as the 46th President of the United States. In Washington, D.C., Eliza Gonzalez Manglikmot reports.
President Joe Biden has just taken oath, and oath-taking was administered by Chief Justice U.S. John Roberts. And in his speech, the 46th President of the United States mentioned that today is America's Day. It is democracy's day. It is a day of renewal and resolve. President Biden said it is time to celebrate the triumph of democracy's cause because democracy has prevailed. He also made mention of the violence that happened in the Capitol 2 weeks ago. He said while some sought to shake democracy by violating the U.S. Capitol, he said we were able to carry out a peaceful transfer of power and that we have seen the resilience of the Constitution. He said the country has come far, but there's so much more to do. And he also mentioned the impact of the coronavirus and the cry for racial justice, but he said the United States won't be deferred. And he also said it is time to confront and defeat extremism and white supremacy. And as expected, he appealed for what he calls the elusive of all things in democracy, and that is unity. He said with unity, the country can right wrongs, can defeat racism, demonism and extremism. And he said what we need to achieve unity is history, faith, and reason. And also without it, there's no peace and there's no nation. He called for the nation to start afresh by listening, seeing, and respecting one another. Now, earlier today, going here to the Capitol, to the U.S. Capitol, we have seen, like what we've mentioned, layers and layers of security, very, very tight security around the nation's capital because of anticipation of protest. But today, many people are hoping that after this unifying message by the president, everything will ease into a better state in the whole country. And while this group of people here behind me were listening to the president's speech, some were moved to tears, some were clapping, jumping, celebrating for what they call a new hope. We are only a few blocks from the U.S. Capitol where everything is happening, but in this part of the nation's capital, you could feel a celebratory mood that this group of people behind me are all sharing. In Washington, Eliza Gonzalez Manglikmot, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Eliza, that was a pretty good crowd gathered behind you. What was the atmosphere in D.C.? There were talks that it's like a war zone over there, with National Guards all over the city and security checkpoints limiting the entrance to the city. Were there tanks? Were there armed military? Tell us.
Okay, Ace, let me take you there. Well, in the early hours of the day when we first got there, it was very quiet, it was very chilly, it was very cold, but you get this eerie feeling in some areas, in DC. Imagine DC where streets were empty, no moving cars on the roads. For me, as someone who frequents the streets of Washington, D.C., the silence in many parts there today, it was indeed deafening. But closer to the Capitol, as we walk toward the Capitol today, you see the checkpoints, police and National Guard members in battle gear. And you're correct, Ace, there were tanks all over. They were used to block some major roads. Now, police cars were also in every corner, and these tall, non-scalable fences were put up around the red zone or the security perimeter. At first glance, it did feel like a war zone, but my point of reference is that of from movies. But after a few blocks, seeing the same scene over and over and over, and witnessing the guards interact, they were actually interacting with civilians, but not in a too friendly manner, but not also in an antagonistic way. It was just right. The interaction was it was very civil. It felt more safe, feeling their presence there than giving out a feeling of fear. It was more a feeling of safety.
In your report, we saw a couple who were very emotional, obviously about probably going back to what happened in January 6th. Some were crying, and I myself got a little bit emotional watching that inauguration. Tell us more about that.
Ace, after the president was sworn in, the crowd started cheering, as we have seen. And then when he started his speech, they fell silent again. And then they would applaud every now and then. It was indeed a celebration. Everyone, as you've seen in the footage, everyone was wearing masks. But you hear their cheers and their eyes. They say it all. We had the opportunity to speak with a Washington resident. Her name is Carol Bench Liu. And she shared with us how upset she was 2 weeks ago with what happened at the U.S. Capitol. But now that the new president has been sworn in, she said she's hopeful to echo the president's message of unity. Let's take a look.
And I think Joe Biden is delivering the right message that, we're going to move forward together. Yeah. I feel good.
He called for healing too. How long do you think this will take after what you've seen in the past 4 years?
Yeah, it's going to take time. I just think at least we have a commitment to coming together, and I didn't feel that last time around in 2017, so I'm hopeful. Well, I was very scared 2 weeks ago. We live less than a mile from here, so I was a little worried. You have that much energy, pumped up, and then I just wasn't sure where it was going to go following, that evening. But then walking around the last 2 weeks, I feel like, okay, we learned our lesson. Let's get reinforcements and prepare. So now it feels good. I don't know. I feel better. I don't know. I mean, I would just echo what I just heard Joe Biden say. I'm just so filled with hope. Yeah, I'm really feeling good today. Yeah.
Now, that was Carol, and she is a resident of Washington, D.C. Now, we got to speak to someone from California. She flew in all the way from California with all her kids to be part of history. And she said, as a woman and as one belonging to a minority in the United States, she said she was in D.C. to celebrate what America is now. Take a look.
What brought you all the way here for this event?
I believe it's a moment for unity as a country, and being that I am a woman of a minority, it's very important that I came here because the last 4 years I felt highly discriminated by the person that lived in the White House.
Graciela, you mentioned that you're a woman of minority. Today, we made history. Vice President Kamala Harris, the first female, the first African American, as the vice president. What's your thoughts about that?
It's so special, but what makes it more special is that she was my senator from California, and being able to attend it here with my nieces and my daughter and teaching them that we could break glass ceilings. We have to have hope and never give up. I think that's the most important thing. If I could teach my kids something, it would be to be resilient and don't give up hope ever.
Graciela, 2 weeks ago, the feeling here was a lot different. What can you say about what happened at the Capitol 2 weeks ago?
It was heartbreaking, but that was not America. This is America, united, coming together. There's no colors, there's no languages. We're just united as American. And for the last 4 years, in order to be American, you had to be blonde with blue eyes. but America is a melting pot. You can never say what an American looks like because we come in different colors and different sizes. We are like ice cream flavors, all kinds of them.
Okay, one last question. The president asked for unity and healing, but he said it's going to take the whole country to do so, to move forward. How long do you think will this healing take?
I think it's going to take a process. We can't just expect us to be united tomorrow, but we have to take that responsibility. Love our friends, love thy neighbors like we love ourselves. And I have Republican friends. I'm a diehard Democrat, but I love my Republicans friends, and I always focus on what I could do, not what other people could do and what is under my control. And I believe that it's up to every American citizen to bring unity back into this country.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So Ace, despite the cold weather, it is safe to say that the feeling was pretty warm and the future looks pretty bright.
Thank you so much, Eliza Gonzalez Manglikmod from Washington, D.C. When we come back, an Eagle News America exclusive, a political management expert shares with us his thoughts on what to expect from the Biden-Harris administration. We'll see how Oakland is celebrating Vice President Kamala Harris, Americans sharing their hopes for the new U.S. leadership, and a Hawaii state official's thoughts on resuming duties amid the COVID-19 pandemic. This is Eagle News America. Stay with us.
Factual.
We have to defeat the virus everywhere.
Timely information. Balanced, not only in the country, but also abroad.
I'm certain of one thing.
Interviews that people need to know. Watch Aguila Pilipinas. A one-hour newscast of reports coming from regional hubs in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Know the important updates in Asia in ASEAN in Focus. Track the latest stories in the provinces in Aguila Provincia. Tune into Mata ng Aguila, the evening primetime news program of Net25. Balanced and objective, Mata ng Aguila covers national and international issues, tackles news on business, health, science and technology, entertainment, sports and human interest features, and current events. And Eagle News International delivers the latest global reports, impartial, accessible, and up-to-date. It brings to fore EBC's rich international scope and access to valuable information streams.
Well, thank you to explain our health outdoor.
Catch these programs on Net25. You can also watch our news programs through eaglenews.ph and Eagle News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
You are watching Eagle News America. I'm Ace Ramirez in Washington. Eagle News America sat down with Professor Todd Belt, Political Management Director of George Washington University here in D.C., and asked him how he perceives the first 100 days of the Biden administration. Professor Belt said it would have to include staffing up the vital aspects of the government, attending to economic and health issues, including a pandemic relief bill.
Great. I think that in the first 100 days, what we're going to see the Biden administration do is really staff up the most vital aspects of government as quickly as possible. That's national security, state. Those two areas have really had a lot of people have left office during the Trump administration. Many of them were not replaced. So for Joe Biden to be able to execute his plan of, reasserting American leadership internationally, those are really important. And of course, on the domestic front, people who are going to be involved in the economy, health and human services, and anything to deal with the coronavirus pandemic will, of course, be very important. I think also in the first 100 days, we'll see a COVID relief bill, what the president-elect has termed his rescue bill, $1.9 trillion bill. I don't know if it will be that big, and it certainly will probably undergo a number of different changes in order to get through the Senate, because the Senate does have 50 Republicans, and they can stall legislation without having that 60-vote threshold that's important for moving legislation through regular channels. Mm-hmm. It is true that the Democrats could use a tactic known as the budget reconciliation process, which would only take 50 votes. But the President-elect Biden has indicated that he does not want to use that process if he doesn't have to. Joe Biden's a man of the Senate. I mean, he was there for many years, and he knows how it operates, and he has great respect for the traditional procedures of the Senate, and he knows that you can make enemies by violating the traditional procedures. So I think that that's pretty much what we're going to see there. We'll also see a number of executive orders, which will overturn a lot of things that the Trump administration has done. For example, the Muslim ban, the Paris Climate Agreement, the Keystone Pipeline, a number of things that Democrats would like to change that will try to bring the country's executive branch closer to where it was on January 19th of 2017 before Donald Trump took over.
Professor Belt, who studied U.S. presidency, campaigns, and elections, added that the biggest obstacle President Biden is facing is reuniting the country and being the leader of all of America.
The goal is going to be the one that really hangs over everything, and that's reuniting the country, right? Trying to do what he said he's going to do, which is govern for all of America. And you know, whether you voted for him or not. And if he can't bring unity both to the public as well as to leadership in Washington, D.C., he's got to do both of those things. Of course, they're very closely related. The leaders represent the public, and the public puts them in office, but also they have influence over the public. But that's sort of this high-level thing that he needs to be able to do to get the more specific things done, such as the economy and the coronavirus, which are both tied up in that rescue bill that he wants to push. So, I think the hardest thing is reuniting the country, especially consider what went on January 6th here with the storming of the Capitol.
Asked if the new president is the kind of leader that could unite America after 4 years of what many describe as a divisive leadership under Trump, Belt said the president, who hails from Delaware, has a little bit of magic in the sense that he knows how to talk to and work with people.
Joe Biden does tend to be a bit of a uniting figure, especially with people in the Senate. When he was vice president under Barack Obama, he was often referred to as the McConnell whisperer. He was somebody who could go up to the Senate and talk to the majority leader and get him to agree to things that people didn't think they could get him agree to. So he does have a little bit of magic that he can work, knowing people and being able to make those contacts. The public's going to be harder because we have had polarization in this country for some time, but of course Donald Trump campaigned and governed in a way that was extremely divisive, and those are going to be more difficult wounds to heal for the country to bring it back together.
Given that Biden has the ability to unite a divided nation, what would be the first step toward healing?
Well, I think the first step is really getting the first step is going to be the inaugural address, right? And I think that we'll probably hear from Joe Biden talking about, the framers of the Constitution and talking about the legacy of American documents and democracy and self-rule, and these very high-minded things that all Americans can agree upon. And I think that's something that goes in that direction. Another thing is that rescue bill. If he can get that pushed through really quickly, that's going to put money in people's pockets, and people like that. whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, getting some extra money in your pocket is going to be something that's going to be very much appreciated.
Professor Todd Belt of George Washington University. Thank you for the insights, Professor. Stay tuned for more of what Professor Todd Belt has to say about President Biden's challenges as Commander-in-Chief. Meanwhile, in Oakland, residents and community leaders are celebrating their victory in Vice President Kamala Harris, the country's first female and first African-American to hold the second highest office in the country. Vice President Harris was born and raised in the Golden State. Bureau Chief Angel Membrere files this report.
An emotional day for many, as today will be remembered in history, the inauguration of President Joe Biden and the first woman Vice President, Kamala Harris. Vice President Harris was born and raised here in Northern California, now represents this state in the White House. She was born in Oakland, California, and started her career in Alameda County. Libby Schaaf, the 50th mayor of the city of Oakland, shared her sentiments through Twitter back on November 7th, saying yes to decency and compassion, yes to new leadership that elevates our values of diversity and inclusion. Today, Mayor Schaaf tweeted, "Congrats to my friend Kamala Harris. Oakland is proud beyond words. First Black woman and Asian woman VP. Daughter of immigrants and daughter of Oakland. You make us proud to be American again." The city of Oakland is proud, to say the least. Yesterday, they raised a new flag, the Scranton Oakland Unity flag. It is a visual of two hands reaching out toward each other with the words Oakland and Scranton, referencing the hometowns of Vice President Kamala Harris and President Joe Biden. Mayor Libby Schaaf was joined by her family as they celebrated the inauguration from their home in Oakland. She proudly hung two flags outside of her house, including the Oakland Scranton Unity flag. And if you look closely at the very end of the clip, Mayor Libby Schaaf places a hand over her chest, pledging allegiance to the American flag. As history has shown us, many memorable messages and quotes are shared during these inauguration speeches, and today was no different. President Joe Biden said, "Here we stand, where 108 years ago at another inaugural, thousands of protesters tried to block brave women marching for the right to vote. And today, we mark the first women in American history elected to national office, Vice President Kamala Harris. Don't tell me things can't change." In Sacramento, California, Angel Membrere, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
Thank you so much, Angel Membrere. Eagle News America asked residents across the United States about their hopes for the new administration under President Joe Biden. Here's what they look forward to. Let's take a look.
I expect the Joe Biden administration to do a few things during their term. First, help the nation recover from the pandemic financially by adding more jobs and by trusting in science. 2, inform and act on global warming and environmental issues. 3, end inhumane immigration policies and reunite children with their families. 4, pass the Equality Act that extends federal protections to members of the LGBTQ community. And 5, push the boundaries on space exploration and science.
What I'm expecting the most from this administration is probably going to be putting people before numbers, profits, corporations, things like that. To me, it looked like before the well-being of citizens and the American people, it seemed like there was way more focus on companies getting help and companies getting bailouts before helping the people. I would really like to see more focus on taking care of the American people before, bailing out companies and corporations and things like that. That's just one of my main expectations.
My expectations for the new presidential administration is 4 more years of disappointment. Not so much the level of disappointment that I had the last 4 years, but Joe Biden is a centrist, and the people calling him a progressive socialist are just sorely mistaken. And as a progressive democratic socialist myself, I don't expect him to do any of the things that I would like to see happen in the next 4 years.
Hi, yes, my name is Amy Brown. I live in Salt Lake City, Utah. How I feel about the change in powers, I was a little anxious today because with the riots and stuff, that was a big concern for me. But overall, my political beliefs or whatever, I will see what happens. I don't have a lot of confidence in him, but hopefully he can prove me wrong. Well, we shall see.
Hi, my name is Anwar Al-Badri. I live here in Corpus Christi in the state of Texas. I'm so happy for the new administration taking over, and I have a strong belief that this administration will do a great job, and they will do an incredible job to help all people and get things done. A lot of work they got ahead of them to do. So I wish them the best, and let's keep this country great and prosperous. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi, Connie Gelano coming from Garland, Texas. My thoughts on the new administration is a sense of hope and hopefully positive change for the country and for all of America.
I hope the Biden administration restores the United States' standing in the world. I hope that we regain our allies' trust. They know that they can rely on us to be active partners in climate change and in controlling the pandemic and in helping when there's a crisis. And I just look forward to seeing their success.
I'm not happy with the outcome of the election. I didn't vote for Joe Biden. I don't like Joe Biden. I never have. He's been in office almost as long as I've been alive. And the man has only accomplished one thing. He's enriched himself and his family by many, many millions and millions of dollars. Do I think the election was fair? No. There was ample evidence of voter fraud on a large scale. And the courts chose to kick the can down the road, period. So now here we are in America, 2021. I have very low expectations of Joe Biden. The only people who are going to be successful are going to be he, his family, and those who carry his water.
I think things will stay pretty much as they are. I hope that people start listening to each other more instead of things are pretty divisive right now. So hopefully if people start assuming like the other side maybe has good intentions, you assume someone has the best intentions versus automatically assuming that they're bad.
I hate to expect anything because that's how you get disappointed, but I will say that I'm hoping that President Biden ushers in a new level of civility. I hope that he can bring back the times when there was less name calling and people were more civil and people were polite, and you can disagree, but you can be agreeable and still walk away and shake hands rather than walk away and be enemies. Because at the end of the day, we have 320 million people in this country, and everybody's different, and we have to learn to get along with everybody. And that's probably my main expectation and my main hope for President Biden.
I'm very hopeful that the new administration will be able to speed up vaccine distribution so that everyone can be vaccinated and we can be safe again and return to our normal lives. And also to pass legislation to help the people that have been struggling and suffering because they've lost their jobs.
Naturally, we're always hopeful. Naturally, we are pulling for the next administration. We keep them in our prayers and hope for the best for them. Some of the issues I think that need to be addressed by the Biden administration is half the population did not vote for Joe Biden. And I was in the half that did not vote for Joe Biden. And at this point, I think to begin to pull the nation together, they need to address the issues concerning the election. 75 million people do not necessarily feel like Joe Biden won legitimately. And I think if they would address that and address the concerns of those people, then I think they would have a real chance of pulling the country back together. Otherwise, I think they're going to have a very difficult time of governing people that question whether or not he was legitimately elected. But anyway, we'll go forward and hope for the best. And thanks for taking time to listen.
As Joe Biden took his oath of office as the 46th U.S. president today, the business of government itself resumes in some parts of the country. And despite the prevailing uncertainties for potential unrest and violence, a Filipino-American lawmaker pledges to fulfill her duties as Hawaii's legislature opens its 2021 session on the same day as the inauguration. Hawaii correspondent Alfred Asenas has more.
It's the night before the opening of the 31st Hawaii legislative session. I'm home, and it's my first session tomorrow as an elected official, so I felt it was important to touch bases with you.
State Senator Bennett Misalucha describes the festive atmosphere that used to be commonplace in and around the Hawaii state capital before the COVID-19 pandemic.
In prior years, the opening day at the Capitol was such a wonderful tradition where food flowed and everyone was embraced with aloha. Because of COVID, we are skipping the ceremonies and paring it down to basics and simple. But we are excited to work with the other legislators, the other senators, to enact bills that would make a difference in all of our lives, in our district. Bills that would hopefully allow us to set the stage for our state's recovery from this pandemic.
The former community leader and business executive acknowledges the risks of discharging her office at a time when COVID-19 cases continue to rise and protests could ignite anywhere at any time in the Aloha State.
I want to thank those of you who reached out and expressed your aloha as well as concern about my safety at the Capitol in view of recent events in Washington, D.C. Do know that I feel confident that all the necessary precautions have been put in place by the relevant authorities involved. We are not taking any threats lightly. However, we need to demonstrate that we, the legislature as an institution, stand strong and the business of the people will go on. We will not cower in fear. As you may have heard, there will be some changes in the way this session will proceed. The Capitol will still be on lockdown due to COVID, but we will have floor sessions in person. However, all the hearings will be virtual. But be assured that democracy will prevail and you, as a citizen, can continue to engage and provide insights into the bills that will be introduced this year.
So the state capitol is still closed to the public until further notice. However, their proceedings will be available live on YouTube. Just type in Hawaii Senate. Reporting from Honolulu, Hawaii, I'm Alfred Asenas, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Alfred Asenas from Hawaii. Up next, we have updates from Edmonton, Alberta, Sicklerville, New Jersey, Swarthmore, Pennsylvania, and Parisburg, Ohio. Eagle News America will return shortly.
Trade shows and exhibitions were one of the most effective and engaging ways to connect with existing and potential customers. But the spread of COVID-19 changed all that with the large cancellations of both global and domestic events. Now that health and safety protocols and social distancing are a must, The days of the crowded trade show floors are so 2019. In this week's episode of Open for Business, we will look into how virtual expos can fill the void to still help MSMEs expand their businesses and continue to engage with customers.
Let's collaborate, let's communicate. Only together, we will become stronger.
David Abrenilla, the founder and chief events officer of Mediacom Solutions, Inc., will join us in this week's Open for Business.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced. Eagle News, because we live in interesting times.
You are watching Eagle News America. I'm Ace Ramirez in Washington. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says the U.S. and Canada are more than just neighbors as he congratulates the new administration. In Alberta, Bureau Chief Thomas Lightness has the details.
Thank you, Ace. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, like you said, says he's looking forward to working with President Joe Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, their administration, as well as the U.S. Congress. Now, he says the two countries have major fights on their hands, and these fights are one and the same. Things like COVID-19, climate change, those are kind of the two top priorities. He says he wants to work with the U.S. to advance climate action and clean economic growth. As well, he wants to promote inclusion and diversity and create good middle-class jobs and opportunities, and he wants to see that on both sides of the border. Reflecting on the bond between the two countries, Trudeau says they're more than just good neighbors. He says we're close friends, we're partners, we're allies. Trudeau notes that Canada and the United States enjoy one of the most unique relationships in the world. He says it's built on a shared commitment to democratic values, common interests, strong economic and security ties. So, well, we watch the changing of the guard in Washington. I wish you all good health. In Edmonton, Canada, Thomas I. Likeness, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Ace.
Tom, what obstacles would you consider between the Canada-U.S. relations?
Oh, there's going to be some speed bumps there. Right off the top is the cancellation of the XL pipeline project. That's going to be a blow to the Alberta economy, my province. Now, this pipeline would have transported crude oil from Alberta down to coastal Texas refineries. And Prime Minister Trudeau says he's disappointed that that project's been canceled. He says, though, he'll continue to try to convince Biden of the merits of the pipeline. This has been going on, incidentally, since 2008. Another point of contention could be the Buy America program. Presently, a lot of Canadian companies supply equipment for public works projects in the U.S. Canadian businesses worry, though, they could be blocked from bidding on future contracts. Now, traditionally, until Trump, the Democrats tended to be more protectionist than the Republicans. Trump changed that, and it's difficult to say, though, whether Biden's administration will loosen some of the protectionism. Ace?
Thank you so much, Thomas Likeness from Edmonton, Alberta. Director Paul Rodriguez of New Jersey's Division of Consumer Affairs will be joining the newly sworn-in Biden-Harris administration. In Sicklerville, May-Ann Manzano-Gorzon reports.
Thank you, Ace. In Trenton, New Jersey today, Governor Phil Murphy announced that Paul R. Rodriguez, Director of the New Jersey Division of Consumer Affairs, will be departing from his role and joining the Biden-Harris administration. Attorney General Gerber Grewal has named Caitlin Caruso as acting director of the division effective immediately. Rodriguez, who has led the state's Consumer Protection Agency since June 2018, will immediately begin serving as Deputy General Counsel to the United States Department of Health and Human Services, or HHS. HHS promotes the health and well-being of all Americans, fostering advances in the sciences underlying medicine, public health, and social services. The agency plays a critical role in responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, which has been a focus of Rodriguez's work in New Jersey over the last year. Under Rodriguez's leadership, the division has focused on investigating and pursuing complex cases with far-reaching implications across industries, particularly pursuing those who target the most vulnerable. Meanwhile, for the latest COVID-19 statistical report, according to the Department of Health of New Jersey, there are 4,582 new positive cases reported today, bringing the statewide total to 576,720 New Jerseyans who have tested positive. Sadly, we have 122 new confirmed COVID-19 deaths, pushing the total to 18,543 fatalities. And for weather update Ace, it's currently 9:44 in the evening here in New Jersey, and it's partly cloudy. It is 27 degrees Fahrenheit or -3 degrees Celsius. In Sicklerville, New Jersey, Mayan Manzano Garzon, Eagle News, we live in interesting times. Back to you, Ace.
Thank you so much, Mayan Manzano Garzon. It is the second term for Pennsylvania's Attorney General Shapiro, and Governor Tom Wolf releases a message for President Joe Biden. In Swarthmore Bureau Chief Mila Simbulan is with us tonight for these stories. Mila.
Thanks, Ace. Attorney General Josh Shapiro was sworn in for a second term as the Attorney General of Pennsylvania. His swearing-in speech reflected on the big fights fought and won since taking office in 2017 and the bigger fights to come in his second term. Here's Attorney General Josh Shapiro to tell us more. Take a look.
60% of the new faces in our office are women or people of color, including a record number in leadership positions. And we're doing more work. District attorneys are sending us more cases, up by a factor of 10. Over 4 million deadly doses of heroin and fentanyl have been taken off the streets, and over 700 people have been held accountable for illegally diverting prescription drugs, a 51% increase from 4 years ago. Lives were no doubt saved. We've taken a broader view of public safety, declaring that drug addiction is a disease, not a crime, and started warm handoff programs to help people get into treatment. We ended the use of automatic cash bail, strengthened reentry programs, and brought community advocates and law enforcement together to help pass Pennsylvania's new police misconduct registry.
Shapiro anticipates time spent on health and economic recovery over the next 4 years, as well as racial inequality and political tensions. Timothy DeFore also sworn in as Pennsylvania's new Auditor General and Stacey Garrity as new Treasurer. While three statewide officials took their oath of office here in Pennsylvania, Governor Tom Wolf attended the sworn-in of President Joseph R. Biden in Washington, D.C. The governor released the following statement, and I quote, "It was an honor to attend the inauguration of Joe Biden as 46th President of the United States today. The inauguration of a new president is a time of hope and promise in our nation. It is a moment of great change, but also one of great possibility and hope for a better future. It is a time for bold vision and strong leadership." In Swarthmore, Pennsylvania, Mila Simbulan, Eagle News, we live in interesting times. Back to you, Ace.
Thank you so much, Mila Simbulan, Swarthmore, Pennsylvania. Senator Sherrod Brown and Rob Portman of Ohio both applauded the newly sworn-in U.S. President Joe Biden. In Parisburg, Randy Bayuga has the details.
Thank you, Ace. Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio tweeted today, "American workers finally have someone on their side in the White House." This, as he encouraged everyone to watch President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris sworn into office. The economic recovery has been in his theme in the last 2 days, as he also tweeted, Ohio communities need our help to prevent layoffs of teachers, firefighters, sanitation workers, and to prevent cuts to services that families rely on. He also stated that we need to make World War II type investments to get American workers back to work and tackles issues on school safety. He asked former Fed Chair and Treasury Secretary nominee Dr. Janet Yellen about how costly it would be if we fail to make this investment. And watch this.
Neither the president-elect nor I proposed this relief package without an appreciation for the country's debt burden. But right now, with interest rates at historic lows, the smartest thing we can do is act big. In the long run, I believe the benefits will far outweigh the costs, especially if we care about helping people who've been struggling for a very long time. As Treasury Secretary, I think that there will be a dual mission too, helping Americans endure the final months of this pandemic, keeping people safe while getting them back to work. That's our first task. But then there's the longer-term project. We have to rebuild our economy so that it creates more prosperity for more people and ensures that American workers can compete in an increasingly competitive global economy. Members of the committee, these are very ambitious goals, and I know we will need to work together. You can count on me to do that in a bipartisan way.
On President Biden's act as president, his first act, Senator Sherrod Brown applauded the new president's executive orders to address the pandemic, climate, and immigration issues, and stating President Biden is putting our country in the right path again. Senator Rob Portman of Ohio was present at the inauguration as he tweeted the following: "Congratulations to President and Dr. Biden, as well as Vice President Harris and Mr. Emhoff. I look forward to working together to make a difference in the lives of Ohioans and all Americans." The economy and recovery from the pandemic was also on Senator Portman's mind. This is what he said in the Senate confirmation hearing with Dr. Janet Yellen. And let's watch this. He tweeted that Dr. Yellen pledged to be a voice of fiscal sanity as Treasury Secretary and work with us to help restore long-term discipline. From Perrysburg, Ohio, Eagle News, Ronnie Bayuga, we live in interesting times. Back to you, Ace.
Thank you so much, Randy Bayuga from Perrysburg, Ohio. In an effort to immunize more people against COVID-19, Washington State reaches out to Starbucks and other businesses to aid in the distribution of what may be considered the most wanted vaccine today. Eagle News correspondent Michael Hudson has the details. Michael.
Thanks, Ace. Appreciate it. So Governor Inslee, Jay Inslee, has announced that the state of Washington has established a public-private relationship with a famous coffee company, Starbucks, and as well as other businesses to help in the distribution of COVID-19 vaccines to those in need in the state. Starbucks in particular is going to be responsible in helping with the operational efficiency as it goes to distributing these vaccines. And according to Starbucks CEO Kevin Johnson, now, we are not a healthcare company, but Starbucks does operate 33,000 stores at scale, serving 100 million customers a week. And we have a world-class team of human-centered design engineers who are working under the direction of the state and healthcare providers to help support the creation of vaccination centers that can scale and amplify the comfort, care, and safety of every person who gets vaccinated. And I quote, Starbucks will utilize a lot of their buildings to partner with local hospitals in the area to set up vaccine centers as well as staff support. And other companies who are involved in this relationship program with the state is also Microsoft, the hospital giant Kaiser Permanente, and the grocery chain Costco. And the overall goal for this new partnership is to vaccinate 45,000 people on a daily basis. As of right now in Washington State, our current numbers are 297,000 positive cases as it pertains to COVID-19, and unfortunately 4,020 deaths. Reporting from Seattle, I'm Michael Hudson, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Ace.
Thank you so much, Michael Hudson, Seattle, Washington. For today's COVID-19 numbers, according to the Coronavirus Resource Center of Johns Hopkins University in Medicine, as of 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Wednesday, January 20, the number of cases of COVID-19 reported worldwide is now 96,663,000. Top 3 on the list of countries with recorded cases: U.S. 24.4 million, India has more than 10.5 million, Brazil has 8.5 million. To date, more than 2,069,000 have succumbed to this virus. The U.S. leads the countries with the most number of COVID-19 related deaths, with more than 405,000. Brazil is next with more than 211,000, and India with more than 152,000. As part of the inauguration celebration a day before the big event, a lighting ceremony in major cities across the country was held yesterday in memory of the lives lost to the COVID-19 pandemic. Here's one that happened in Honolulu. Let's take a look. And here are some more images of the lighting ceremonies across the country. If you can show them up right now. And we have this one is from Las Vegas, Nevada. And the next one, I think we have images from Seattle, Washington. Before we go, I just wanted to greet my daughter. A happy birthday. She turned 6 today. We continue to express our appreciation for our healthcare workers, first responders, and essential workers. You are our modern-day heroes. We appreciate you. That is today's Eagle News America. Thank you for joining us. I'm Ace Ramirez. We live in interesting times.